Hey, Jeff Went here. Allie Went back with Bill and Lisa Aragoni. These are Allie's parents.
Yeah.
This is our family small business series here for Weight Coaching, and we have some great content. Please watch our previous episodes just to set up this episode, but it's so great. So, Allie, where we left off in the last one, we were talking about the idea of being, like, you reported to your sister.
Yeah.
Your sister-in-law reported to you.
My mom reported to my sister.
Your mom reported to...
My sister reported to my dad.
Oh my goodness, this is like...
It was a whole web.
We all avoided him here, you know.
He was good as long as he was on the top.
Yeah, just keep him busy.
So, but I can only imagine, like, okay, you had 150 to 180 employees at the peak, and maybe it's grown since you've sold to Angelica. Like, it's pretty awesome. I know that she has expanded, which is amazing.
Yes.
But I know if someone's listening and they're a part of a family business, and you're talking about, hold on, what? Like, they're thinking of the lines and the dotted lines and the direct lines, and okay, and then you have family dinner together, and you want to have family dinner together? What? Like, okay, so there had to be some sort of processes in place that you were like, okay, direct report to your sister, and then you were leading your sister-in-law. And we always say in weight coaching, like, without a process, things feel personal.
Yeah.
So give us some very practical advice of, like, what were some processes that you did on a regular basis to keep it professional and not personal?
Yeah, I actually heard it said one way, which I really like too, that you have kind of your, like, mode of operation, or the way that you interact with each other at home. And if you don't have a different set of, like, behaviors that are acceptable at work, you're going to bring all of those kind of at-home tendencies into the office. And so it is really important to create a whole separate set of, this is who we are, this is how we behave, this is how we operate within the workplace. And so my mom was actually our HR director, so she can speak to a lot of this as well. But yeah, there's a few really key things that help with creating process and that new set of rules that are going to keep us working professionally together. I'm not going to switch into, like, little girl mode tantruming to my dad when I'm not getting my way about this thing, you know, which you see. And so one of the things is having just clarity in who plays what roles within the organization. That has to be mapped out and crystal clear, like, this is my role, this is what I'm accountable for, and I own this. And even if my dad is CEO, he has to allow me to own this thing too. And there can't be these weird overreaches. So that's, like, the first step is creating that clarity organizationally, like, very high level, who owns what roles. And then once you have that set, you need clear job descriptions, and you need really clear expectations, measurables. I was over hiring. I was held to certain standards with hiring. We had to fill roles within a given time. We couldn't have a certain amount of roles open, like too many roles open at a given time. I had to watch over things like overtime, because overtime was a symptom of not hiring in enough time. All of those things, right? So I had really clear deliverables or measurables assigned to me. So it wasn't like ever a subjective or relational type thing, like, is Allie good at her job or not? Like, it was clear, like, are you delivering on what the company needs?
And it wasn't like any of our jobs to tell her whether she was good at her job or not. It was up to the person who was her immediate supervisor, who wrote her performance reviews. I mean, handling it as you should.
Yeah, not consulting, hey, mom and dad, how do you think Allie's doing, right? Like, it's like, yeah.
Well, and even based on that, like you said, clear deliverables and KPIs and a scorecard, like, this is what you were responsible for doing. So even for your direct report, who was Angelica, your sister at that point, who had to do your progress assessment, the scorecard really told the story.
Yes.
Like, if you did the work to create that process told the story, which led to an effective PA.
Honestly, it is so important to even protect you as your manager, because for my sister working with me, like, we loved each other. We were super close. And sometimes the proximity can cloud your judgment. And it can
Oh, yeah.
actually be really hard to hold someone accountable when it's like you understand how challenging it's been, and you've walked through the saga with them, and you start to kind of like have your judgment clouded and really being able to hold them accountable. Like, I know you've been working hard, but we're not getting results. We need results.
Right.
You sort of need that separation at times. So if and when you don't have it, like, you're really relying upon those numbers. We need clear, hard facts that we're basing our decisions off of. And having measurables, having that scorecard does that for you.
So that's one of the processes. You're like, hey, this was a great process that helped with that. What are some other processes? How about this? Like, from the standpoint of like, that's the process to manage like how well you're doing. But what about, I'm sure that as the daughters, you guys made more than everyone else, correct?
I mean, of course.
Of course.
No.
That's of course a joke.
No.
Just saying. But like
No.
in that, like how did you manage some of those things? Like making sure that, okay, so you're not, as the daughters of the owners, treated, well, they make more because of. What were some processes you had in place to ensure that that wasn't the case?
Well,
Go for it.
I did the hiring, and of course, first of all, education levels when anybody came in, not the fact that they were just our daughter, but we had other people we hired that were more educated, more experienced, and they came in higher than Allie. And then really pay increases were based on performance reviews and how well everybody did with their deliverables. And it couldn't be argued with, because eventually the talent and the gifts and the abilities are there, and people were merited based on that, not who they were.
And a lot of those decisions were made somewhat by committee. Our leadership team would approve a lot of the pay increases. We would go through, we had a budget allocated for pay increases, and we would really walk through in a very detailed manner,
Yes.
like, okay, we're giving this to this person, we got to level set that person. So there was a lot of accountability around how we handled money and how certain people were promoted. It was never just a unilateral, like, Bill could decide or Lisa could decide all on her own.
We had other executives in the organization that worked right there side by side with us family, and I don't think that they felt like their voice wasn't heard. They had just as much weight in those decisions.
And again, like, it's got to be made at the office, in the boardroom,
Yeah.
with everyone
Not at
there.
home.
You know what? That was
Not at home in the kitchen.
that was
Right,
going to be when
yeah.
we were talking about this, like
Right.
you were saying this, and I think to myself,
Yeah,
because
never.
so many times you talk about people in the boardroom, and they know that, hey, we're going to have especially if you work for a family business or a husband-wife couple, because I've done that before, and I know that, we would have great discussions, and it seemed like we were going one direction, and then the next day we would come back and, oh, we're going a different direction. And I was like, based upon the conversation we had yesterday, I thought we were going to go this way. And it seemed like the decision is made in the kitchen. So what were some ways that you safeguarded to make sure that wasn't the case?
We just had a hard and fast rule.
So you guys were just disciplined. You're like,
Very.
this is...
We did not talk business at home.
You know what's interesting? I'll say this. I feel like when you're disciplined like that, what happens is that the other people that are not family, that are sitting around the table, realize, like, my voice does matter. My voice is heard. My
Yeah.
voice is taken. Like,
Right.
I'm actually respected as a professional
Yes.
for my level of knowledge and competency in what I bring to the table. Not just like, okay, well, hey, thanks for being here and filling a seat, and we'll let you know what we're going to do. Like, I appreciate that you guys were that disciplined.
But it all goes back to having that clear structure too. So no matter what the conversation is, if we're talking about something that someone else owns, we're not making a decision about this thing without them in the room, right? So
Right.
it's like having that clarity in who is sitting in what role, who owns what. You can't side skirt that then.
Sure.
They need to be a part of that conversation. And we had a lot of process around, like, even what meetings we had every week and who was included. And there was a very clear rhythm to, like, hey, the whole team is meeting once a week. We're all in the same room together. This is when you talk about that thing. You don't go around and politic and try to get dad on your
Yes.
side. or mom on your side, and you know,
Right.
like those are the dynamics that we did kind of see before we really implemented a lot of this process, and this corrected that in a really big way, and it just creates so much health and safeguard around like that dysfunction that you can see in family businesses, but really you see that in any business.
Right.
Small businesses, we see a lot of that kind of politicking or
Sure.
Well, and even like the politicking piece, I can see how people with politic try to get their way, but even if there's innocent, like, oh, I'm going to talk to Allie about this and we're going to make a decision, and like, oh, I talked to Bill and mentioned, oh, hey, Bill, Allie and I are doing this, and oh, Jeff, did you consider this? Oh, I didn't know that, Bill. Then you and I have a conversation.
Yeah.
Then I have to go back to Allie.
What
and
a
then
waste
it's
of
this.
time, right?
And then you're like, then I go back to you and you're like, well, did you say, oh my gosh. And so like this, the inefficiency of
Right.
communication,
Right.
but what you're saying, hey, one meeting,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah,
not one meeting, but
there's
the
a
process.
Right. I think with process, a process is only good as the respect that you have for it.
yeah.
That's good.
And the respect has to go both ways. It's not like I just expect respect from the bottom up, but if I don't respect the people that are my subordinates and their authority, then it destroys the integrity of the process. So in other words, if somebody comes to me and I make an HR decision without consulting her, it destroys the integrity of the process, of the team. I'm disrespecting her. It just all starts to fall apart. So it is all about wisdom, or excuse me, about discipline.
Well,
Yeah.
wisdom as well.
That is wisdom.
Yeah.
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 Right.
Thanks for the help there. Yeah. But it's all about discipline. And so if you tried to sidestep Lisa because you didn't think you were going to get the answer that you wanted to from her and you could sweet talk me, I would be, Jeff, you just need to go talk to Lisa. Oh yeah, I know I will, but no, just go talk to Lisa.
Yeah.
And that's how we all operated. And we trained on that. You talk about those things and then
Yeah.
you say, hey, we're going to honor this together as a team.
Yeah.
But
And
can I say-
everyone throughout the whole organization operates like that. Now, do people try to abuse it? Absolutely.
Sure.
What they have to learn early on is that they're going to run into a brick wall.
I feel like sometimes like, and this is maybe, I feel like adults are they're just big kids,
Yes,
right? And we
absolutely.
just need parameters. Like
Yes,
our
yeah.
kids,
we do.
they need parameters.
We
They
try
need-
all the same
right?
tricks,
All
don't
the same things,
Yeah, we
right?
do.
Yeah, and you go up, you're like, well, I'm going to go around this way.
Yeah.
Like,
Try
well,
whining, right?
Well,
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we need that. Like literally, even for our kids, when there's not structure, there's a lack of like, they feel insecure.
You're right.
And the lack of safety.
Yeah.
And so for you, like even in this, okay, so you have the structure, and somebody like, that's so rigid. I like a more relaxed workspace. But it's like,
Right.
when you have a relaxed workspace, it's like, okay, but relaxed, like, did he talk to her? Did you, oh, you covered this already? Where was that? Like, that's the relaxed workspace? That's not relaxing.
No.
I feel like that lack of discipline, you're calling it relaxed, but it's really a lack of discipline. Like, could you ever operate a football squad that way? I mean,
Not and win.
Could they operate on an NFL elite sort of level like that? Like, well, let's just relax. Let's run whatever play we want to run. Just go down the field, just
Right.
Who
see
feels
what
like
happens.
calling
I'll just
the play,
crank one out
right?
there.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
you're not even going to be able to beat, the Pee-wees. Why I bring that up is because even in this social services realm that we came from, people actually wanted to make money, even though they had big hearts. They still wanted
Yeah.
a paycheck. And guess what else? They want to make more next year than they did this year.
Right.
Guess what else? They want to be promoted. They want to go up the chain of command. They want to maybe be a manager someday, maybe an executive someday. And how do you grow if you don't have a disciplined operation? How do you play on that level? How do you play on an NFL level if you're just throwing the ball around?
So, Bill, if I'm hearing like what you're saying and what we're talking about here, like it's not just having a process. You also have to adhere to the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You
Even
have
when
to
it
be
hurts.
disciplined.
Even when it hurts.
Even when
Yes.
it
It's got to
hurts.
be healthy.
Yeah.
We wanted to grow also.
Yeah.
We really wanted to grow, and we did grow.
Yes.
But in order to grow, we had to attract people outside of the family, of course. So they had to think and know and experience This is a healthy organization. It has nothing to do with being a family business or not. Don't we all want to be part of a healthy organization? So,
Yeah.
And you have to have, if you want to grow, you've got to surround yourself with the best. In my family, we've got a lot of really smart people. Allie's very smart. Angelica's very smart. My son-in-laws were very, very good. But we needed people who are smarter than them at different aspects of the business.
sure.
Yeah.
And we needed the best, because the bigger you are, the more complicated it is.
Yeah.
And the higher level of leadership that you need.
Yeah.
So they were great at what they're doing. They grew with the company. They honed their skills. They got better and better year by year. But other areas of the company needed really high level
Yeah.
leaders. And so, we had to be the type of company they'd be attracted to too.
Right.
Because exceptional people don't want to hang out with, just
Well, the Eagles don't hang out with pros. Like
Exactly.
that's the idea.
Right.
So I would just want to underscore that idea of respecting the people working for you or
Yes.
with you. You as a CEO, you did a really good job of that. That's hard to do because that means you're giving up power, right? You're giving up control. You're letting go and entrusting it to someone else because it's what you have to do in order to grow. But that is one thing that we see, right, with a lot of organizations. When a leader is not willing to let go and trust, they're really kind of stifling
Yes.
the growth of their organization. And so I wanted to underscore that because that really gets to the root in kind of what's going on internally
Yeah.
with a lot of leaders.
Yes. I've seen a lot of that because I have consulted with other entrepreneurs, and I've seen this micromanagement, this inability to let go. And honestly, it just wasn't that hard for me. I guess I wanted my goals, which were to succeed, to grow our company, to go to the next level. I wanted that more than I wanted to micromanage things and show that I was the king of the hill. I feel like maybe it was a part of my own spiritual journey as well, that I needed to learn humility and to think of other people more highly than I think of myself. It didn't threaten me to think that, Allie's a lot smarter than me, Angelica's a lot smarter than me, and so-and-so is a lot smarter than me. I couldn't do what they do. Sometimes when they'd explain some of their processes as we got larger and we're getting over $10 million in revenues, some of the processes would make my head swim.
Right.
So I had no problem letting go. It really wasn't a problem for me. I liked doing what I did best and just doing my job.
Yeah. There's Craig Rochelle. He's a pastor and a podcaster. He's a phenomenal leader.
Yes,
he
he
sums
is.
up what we're talking about. He says you can have growth or you can have control, but you can't have both.
Amen.
That's good.
It's
I like that.
That stuck with me
That's
because
right.
I think if you want to grow, you ultimately have
Gotta
to
let
give
go.
away
Let go.
control.
Yeah.
And I think the way you guys did it, it's through processes that you were adhering to in a very disciplined way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's the adage you would always say, trust but verify, right?
Yes,
So we're not just handing
absolutely.
things off and not verifying and
absolutely.
checking and all the things,
Yeah.
right?
So you had a process in place.
was-
you were trusting,
Yeah,
not
that
just
was
the person.
Yes.
that was part of the meeting
Right.
pulse, that
Yeah.
you were verifying everything. You had a scorecard on all the major drivers of your business, and you're checking in on those every week.
I've talked to a number of leaders, I should say, that they lack trust because they've tried to hand it off, they've tried to give things to people, and it's not gone well. And I think if you are someone who struggles with trust and letting go and bringing others into your vision, that's maybe something to look at. Did I trust too much? Did I give too much all at once? Did I hand it off and then never
Yeah.
do additional development or check in or verify? So that's that balancing. act.
I think there's two things you touched on there that I'd like to point out. There's a smart way to delegate and a not so smart way to delegate.
Irresponsible.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the expectations side of it. Are your expectations too high? And or like your expectations need to be properly set. We talked about someone that we're going to promote in our business, and I felt like in our discussion we set our expectations at the right level. I didn't think we set them too high. And we're going to delegate a reasonable amount of responsibility, not just dump a whole new job on this person. I believe it's going to go really well because I think we're delegating to this person in a really wise way.
Measured.
And incrementally handing off responsibilities, but then verifying on a weekly basis. Don't wait 3 months and go, you destroyed the company, you sunk the division.
Yeah.
And that's the way a lot of people operate. And no wonder that they get burnt and then they don't want to ever trust anybody ever again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then even from the employee standpoint, you're just plugging along, think you're doing great, and then 90-day review comes up and you're like, you destroyed the division. You're like,
Oh, yeah.
could we have talked about it a week ago or a month ago or 3 months ago?
Right.
Like,
But you have to have a
Yeah.
scorecard and you need to be checking in. It's like, oh, hey, you dropped this. And I've always talked as a leader, one of my favorite little adages is it's show and tell. You remember that when you're in kindergarten, you brought something in and you showed it and then you told about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of bosses just want to tell. Just go do such and such. And I've always believed in this, even as in my earliest days as a leader, when I was just like 19 years old and I was an assistant manager at Kinney Shoes, I wouldn't just tell people what to do, but I'd walk over to that display or whatever, to what we're working on, walk over, show them how to do it, talk about it, tell them what we're doing, and then go, now you do it. Be right there with them. And I think like you can do that with everything. You actually show them and tell them, not just go, here, go fix that division there.
Right.
This has been gold. Like, we could continue to talk, because even as you're talking about all these things coming up, but we're at time
It's
for
so
this
fun.
session. Isn't it? It's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, well, hey, Bill and Lisa, thank you for being with us today. Allie, as always, so glad to have you, obviously. Weight Coaching, thanks for joining today. Be sure to like, subscribe, share.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your feedback as well, so be sure to comment as well. So, hey, thank you. Have a wonderful day.